Hello, James, Derek here. 2016, our our MBTI podcast. Welcome. And today we talked about having a topic, which is the hero functions. We talked about inferior functions at some point, and we thought it would be helpful for all of us, and actually between us two and the people watching, for us to go over the hero functions. Big picture, maybe go down each of the functions so that we're all aware of them and how they show up in people's lives. I think that'd be helpful.
So what do you mean by hero function? Where does this terminology come from, do you think?
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. So, John Beebe had a model for MBTI. If you look deeper into MBTI, I implore you to search up your type, if you know your type, and type 8 cognitive functions, and then you'll see the 8 functions. And his model labeled each function in the stack as having a certain, what would you call it, attribute to them. So the first function in his model is called the hero function. It's called a hero function for a good reason. I'll say right now, it's because the hero function feels like it's what you feel the world needs more, and if everyone did it, um, the world would be saved. And it's what you feel people don't do enough, and if you and you will do it to save the world, to provide a lot of value to the world. That's the first function. To go through the whole, I'll quickly go through all of the names. First, hero. Second, parent. Third, child. Fourth, inferior. Fifth, critic. Seventh, or fifth, sixth. Fifth, opposing. Sixth, critic. Seventh, trickster. Eighth, demon. That is the model. And today we will go over the hero functions, talk about anyone we know in our lives that have that, and dive into them so that we all know. Now, let's talk about the first function. Uh, there are 8 different functions you could possibly have as a hero, but for the INFP and the ISFP, the hero is introverted feeling. And introverted feeling is all about internal values and emotional authenticity. What do I like? How do I think the world is? That's right, that's wrong. And they always check in on their internal compass to really know. And that's a very deep part of who they are. I would, if you were to put it in percentage, I would say my TI is like 80%. So I would say FI for this person is 80%. Like they go through life with a strong internal moral code. And uh, looking here, it says that their strength is that they have a strong moral code, and they can be empathetic because they see themselves as a complete and excellent person. There's a lot of self-acceptance, self-love there, and so they look around and they can really value other people as individuals too.
Would they be able to empathize with someone who has a different morals than they do? Because
Um,
empathy obviously it has to be a shared thing. It's not sympathy, or did you mean to say sympathy?
uh, the empathy comes from this place of like I'm a person and you're a person, and so
So
I'll take
it's
care of. Uh,
bare bones. It kind of just strips everything off the person and just says, "Look, we're humans. Therefore, I can empathize with anything that you might be troubled with or concerned with."
yes, and you FI is very much going to want everyone to have the freedom to be completely themselves as they love who they are, and they really value that they're an individual, so they will value that you're an individual. And there is a quote by Voltaire that I think is very fittingly FI. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
So is that what they're doing there? They're defending the right to say it. It's not so much that they agree with them, because that's the next question I want to ask is about this moral code or moral values.
Hmm.
Is first of all, I was wondering how is that defined, or rather, what I mean is how does that person? define their morals, or where do they come from, where do they originate from, and do they grow or expand over time, or rather, or maybe they're more refined over time, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what we mean by moral code here.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. I will speak from the experience of my mother. My mother is INFP, and so she spent her whole life deeply Christian, and so she took Christianity into her morals, her personal morals, and she's open to like letting everyone live the way that they would like to live. She's very open to their freedom. However, she also carries an internal framework that she has built over time. She repeats over and over that the world works on a certain equation. The more that you give to the world, the more that you will receive. These kinds of things that she always tells me to do. Um, but it's not really so much that she expects other people to live by this. Is that she carries it around. She feels that it is valuable to her. She values herself greatly, and because she goes around like that, she can walk up to other people and value them deeply as well. And there's no like falling short of any measurements. There's no expectations. It's very there's a lot of self acceptance and love there.
It's interesting because now it's probably the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is the any pitfalls or disadvantages to this. Because I'm thinking, what if someone misunderstands this, like, for example, you said like, oh, you should do like this. Now that she's not like forcing you to do it, but she's certainly suggesting it probably very firmly because she believes in it. So I'm wondering, people that get rubbed the wrong way with that type of person, how that might
Oh,
look.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, okay, yes, since she lives in FI, she will very often want to share her FI. She's musing about FI, her internal moral framework that she's created, and so she will want to share it. And she's INFP, so her second function is extra intuition. She would like to discuss it with people, bounce it off people, hear what they have to think. And I always, when I was growing up, I always interpreted it as she's telling me what to do, and I would resist and I would speak back against it. But that's not really what she was doing. She was almost just radiating it out, like her inner morals. But she also had this sense that people can live however they want. I just noticed this about the world.
I see.
This FI.
That's interesting. It's like she notices something about the world, but this is from her point of view, and I wonder if she recognizes that because when people become overly self-important, they can sometimes become a little bit more pushy or more direct with the way they say things. For example, there's you can suggest something or you can state something. For like if I say like you shouldn't drink caffeine after 3 p.m. is different than don't drink caffeine after 3 p.m. It's bad for you. And I would see that as a potential, at least one way to soften it at the very least, like maybe to someone who is resistant to being told what to do. And I'm just curious if that type of person even takes that into consideration, or if it's just like, nope, I believe this is true. This is how I observe things, and when I observe something, I know it's right, and therefore it is right, and therefore I will say to someone, this is how you should do it.
Yeah. So you speak to actually a certain pitfall of all heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I'll go into that as the next topic right here. However, yes, all heroes, the pitfall that people can fall into is that they treat their hero function as if it is reality instead of a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so ISFPs, just like everyone else, they can fall into the pitfall and think, if I think feel this, and therefore the world should be fi this, and self they get indignant, and they talk about like the immorality of the world. And that is you can speak to what people talk about is hero function versus warrior. And what I would say warrior is when you realize, oh, you get outside of the box of your hero function,
So we're still
and you
talking about
see
the
it
first
as
function, though. We're talking about
yes,
an evolved form, especially for you Pokemon fans out there. No.
yes, yes,
Yeah, because I don't know if that was made very clear there. So it's the hero function is immature when you're born with it. You maybe spend 80% of your time using in it, and eventually you learn, oh, okay, so there's better ways to be maybe more productive or be a better person, and therefore let's see if we can upgrade this, and then that's when it becomes this warrior function.
Um,
Or is it the effectiveness of it? I'm not sure.
okay. Uh, in my experience, what I've seen happen is I had a ton of confidence in my hero function.
Okay.
And I went through life trying to live by the hero function and thinking if everyone just understood these TI things as an INTP, then the world would work. Uh, but then as I pursued more and more things, I discovered, uh, for example, me dismissing TE, saying, "Oh, TE, you don't need TE, you don't need TE." But then one day, TI couldn't cut it. My logic of how it worked couldn't cut it, and then someone who was an ISTJ, very strong TE, came in and saved my butt. And it's situations like that that had me realize, like, oh, okay,
So it's
what I see is not the truth. It's actually just my perspective.
yeah. So it's a realization. It's a realization that the world doesn't revolve around me and my TI, or in my case NI or whatever. And on top of that, there are use cases, or there are cases where other people with different strengths would be more helpful in this situation. Therefore, we should just sort of defer to them, or maybe work together with them, create a certain synergy there, and utilize both the strengths of both sides, or both for both people.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's where this evolution, or not evolution, evolving it evolves into the warrior.
That's what
It's
people
more
have shared.
effective.
Yes, because the downside of the hero is people can misinterpret it as reality, and then live by it, and then there's all kinds of just unconscious damage that people cause. In FI, you've likely seen that when people treat their morals as if the morals should be reality and they are reality, they can cause all kinds of unconscious problems.
Okay,
So,
moving on, I guess.
sure. So moving on, we can talk about extroverted feeling. Extroverted feeling is the hero for ENFJ and ESFJ. And extroverted feeling is external feeling, thinking about harmony and how people are all feeling. This is the person where if you walk into the house, then they will be checking, like, oh, would you like any water? Would you like any food? They're always they want to be aware of your emotional state. And the strength of this is they think it's very important for the people around them to feel good, and so they're very good at creating that sense of group cohesion. Um, and something I find very interesting, by the way, is these functions. When it's their hero, you get so good at using them that that you can go against them at any time. So what I've noticed is hero FEs, when they need to, they will very gladly piss you off because they know that afterwards they can say something very soothing to fix what they just did.
So they weaponize it,
Yes.
and then use it to fix the damage that they caused.
Yes.
That's a bit manipulative.
Well, you can almost say that the whole MBTI system and all these functions is all manipulation.
I'm not against it. I'll just point it out.
Mm-hmm. So someone who is very talented in helping people feel good around them knows when to use that and when not, when to intentionally go against that. The analogy I think of is a surgeon. A surgeon, in order to remove the cancer, they have to cut you open, and then they can take it out, and then they can heal it up. So
Right. They didn't give you the cancer though, because I mean that's the direction I would have went with that. But I guess what you're getting at.
Yeah. So an FE here. Well, I'm saying this from a very benevolent place. An FE hero is so good at taking care of people's emotions that they will willingly injure you to fix something, and then heal it up with their FE.
I don't see what's benevolent about damaging someone. I think, why don't you just heal them in the first place?
Well, if someone has cancer, they have cancer.
Okay, that's not what I meant, but I was thinking more emotionally. I'm picturing because like for some reason when I hear extroverted feeling, I think about actual feelings, and so I'm picturing somebody like purposefully, saying something to you to make you feel bad or whatever it might be, like knowing your weak point in your just feelings wise, and then like trying to upset you so that they can make you feel better.
Oh, that's
That's
not
what
what I
I thought you
mean.
meant,
That's
and
not what I
that
mean.
that that sounds so manipulative and like I mean I know people like that. Narcissists do that a lot.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, for example, so hero FEs also have TI in their stack, some truth, some inner truth, and hero FEs are very good at, or they learn to get good at, telling you the TI truth to hurt, to like that. The TI truth will sting a lot, and then they heal it up afterwards by saying like, just, I mean, it's perfectly fine, you and me. We're fine. It's just I wanted to let you
So
know
if they're
that.
like, Derek, you're short. You're never gonna be tall. Just accept it. And like, but it's okay to be short. You'll live longer. I've heard that people with the bigger femurs or wider femurs live longer than people that are tall. That kind of thing.
That
Basically, trying to console them, like tell them what's up, and then like console them. Or like somebody who's having relationship problems, just be like, look, he's not right for you. That's the truth.
yes,
And then be like, but I'm here for you.
yeah, exactly.
We
That
can get
second
through it.
example,
We'll find you a better person.
that second example is exactly what I'm thinking about. Like the FE leads them to understand that that person is not right for them, and if that person left, it'd be better for that person. And so their FE leads them to direct this in such a way where the TI truth is delivered as softly as possible. Like, hey, I need to talk with you. That person is not good for you. You should break up with them, as you already know. And then afterwards, you add some FE, something like, uh, "But I'm here for you, and if there's anything you need, let me know." That's the FE language. Like, hey, and we're all here to have a great time, aren't we? Like that's FE.
I could see someone misusing this as well.
Oh yeah, well,
Because like if you're talking to, let's say you're talking to a female you're interested in, and you don't like you just the fact that she has a boyfriend, and you're like, okay, well I'll just figure out a way to break them up because he's not right for her, and then I can manipulate her to feel better about it, and then like she's gonna feel closer to me, and therefore maybe I can date her. I could see that type of situation happening.
perhaps you could. In my mind, yes, these functions are useful ways to navigate the world, and from a certain perspective, yes, you can think about it as manipulation. But manipulation is the same thing as accomplishment. Like that's like surgery is manipulation, right? It's just the attitude that you have as you do it.
Right. All I'm speaking to is earlier you mentioned the word benevolence, and benevolence to me means good, and I can't see how you can claim using your strength, using your ability, the power that you have with it to, obviously, I mean it's manipulation, sure, but it's not. It's attitude doesn't matter there. I mean it's quite negative. I mean there's only a negative connotation to the scenario I described. So my point is, it doesn't
Ah,
always have to be used for good things.
oh no, no. I mean, like, and you're speaking to something that's beyond MBTI, which is
Oh,
uh, almost spiritual, almost attitude. Your outlook on the world will shape how you want to use these functions. If you see the world as a negative place, you will use these functions in a negative way.
perhaps. I mean, or maybe you don't see that way. You just see that everything you do is good and is right, and therefore, if I want something, I just use whatever skills I have to get it.
Hmm.
So to most people, that would look poor or be poorly looked upon, and maybe not to everyone. So that yeah, like you said, it's more of a morals thing. It's just it's interesting because morals are a big part of MBTI though in a way. At least the moral codes that like people like myself, for example, the FI. Um, Earlier you mentioned people saying like oh the world is like this and it should be like that and it shouldn't be like this. Like that's similar though. It's like like if I like everyone knows it's not okay to murder. But that's a shared moral code, but some people might find it to be okay, and like they could easily just say that it's okay. Anyway, I'm getting really really off of the topic here.
I
Just
see.
I didn't like the word benevolent being used because it sounds like, oh, everyone uses a hero function for good, and I don't believe that.
Yeah, that could happen. That can happen. I personally view it as almost the person's outlook on life.
I wanted to speak about FE just a little bit more, namely because for me it's such an interesting function. I don't have it in the top 4. It's like 7, I think.
Mhm.
But I feel like I can do similar things. So I'm wondering what is it that I would be doing or utilizing to in that situation that someone who has it as their hero function. So for example, like I certainly can tell when someone's not good for somebody, at least in my opinion, and I can see them suffering. And why is it that I'm able to also console somebody in that situation, despite not having FE in my stack?
Well, if you listen to an FE user say this in the same conversation as you having that conversation, I'm sure the conversation will sound very different.
So it is about the feeling and the that you get from the way it's being said, and how it sounds, like you said, or maybe the word choice or the location where you're doing, like you're not at McDonald's or something, or like I don't know, like somewhere you shouldn't be talking about it. Maybe I wouldn't choose the perfect timing, is what you're saying. So
Yeah, well, like
it does make sense that I would be able to do that. I wouldn't just. It's not like, oh well, I don't know how people are feeling, so
no,
I don't care.
so yes, you would be able to have that conversation. However, the conversation will be about something different.
Oh.
It won't. An FE person will say, "I'm sorry you feel that way. Like things will get better. Blah 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 blah." Like you'll be talking to the emotions. However, I think for you as a T user, you'd say
I'd be talking to the logic.
you'd say like, "Oh, that person wasn't good for you. Uh, think about all the things you can do now." And
Yeah, or like, look at what he did. He did this, and this is not good, and that's me talking about how I feel about that, and like, but like internally, and just like, oh, my moral code states that if you do A, B, C, and D, then you're therefore not a good person, and also not a good person for this person. So I guess it would be more logical. And the way I would portray it, sure,
yeah, that is
I would literally list it like that probably.
that is TFI right there. Come
Okay.
on, that's TFI saying like oh, don't you understand like if you view this as a business transaction that it was unfair for you. It's almost like what you're saying.
Sounds efficient. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my point here was is like I wanted to point that out. I wanted to point out that I also have been in situations I can console a person because like a lot of times INTJs are seen as just not caring about anybody, and it's not that we don't care. It's just the way we show our that we care is certainly not most comfortable way. It's probably very awkward and like it's like getting a shot and missing the vein type of situation. But we're still trying to give you the shot.
Yeah. It's I think certain types would also be receptive to that.
Okay.
They would it's I mean it's almost like tough love. It's like
Yeah.
it's like hey, I mean it's I'm sorry that you feel that way. However, this is what you need to do next almost.
Yeah, that sounds just right. Like I literally would say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," even though I really don't. I'm not sorry. I mean, I guess I am. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm sorry. I feel sorry, or rather, I want you to not suffer, and this is how you can solve your problem. Yeah, that is I guess tough love is the right word.
Yeah.
Alright.
The FE view is almost this person shared this with me because they're hurting, and if I hear them, then that's the first step.
Actually, I like that you brought up that they're sharing it with me because like I will not pry. I don't tend to get involved in people's lives unless something's like in my face. Like if I see someone abusing someone, obviously I'm going to step in. Well, not obviously, but like I will step in. But if they come to me asking for help, then if it's being solicited, then sure I'm going to help. But otherwise, I'll stay out of it. I will not give tips or anything. I'll just let things go as they go, because I don't feel like it's something I need to involve myself in. Whereas I feel like an FE person is always watching and probably would inject themselves into the situation regardless of it being solicited. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I noticed is the FE person is a person that's going to come out like if someone bursts into tears, the FE person will come out and start tapping them on the back and putting them in their shoulder, that kind of thing.
I would say, why are you crying?
Yeah. maybe you might get angry. You're like, who
What?
who is the person?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do. I just get angry because I'm like, well, this isn't right. Let's fix this.
Interesting.
And if it's inconveniencing me, obviously, I would be like, okay, well, let's stop this now. How do I do that? Tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Enough about me. Enough about FE, I guess, for now. I don't want to get too stranded on the topic.
I'll just say, FE hero is very good at that. As an FE inferior, fourth function, I know I know I should do that, but it feels it doesn't go all the way to the action immediately. When I was talking to an ESFJ girl, she burst into tears, and then I sat there and I said, "Well, I'll see you later."
Wow, that's worse than me. Because I was just about to ask you, if you have, it's inferior, it's in your stack, it's number 4. You just said you know you should do something, and yet you actually end up not doing anything. Which, because I was going to ask you, what would you do in that situation? That sounds to me far worse than tough love or someone with FE as a hero. Because like I will at least acknowledge immediately that something's happening. Like as soon as the tears start coming out, like I mean, I might stupidly ask, do you have allergies? But if that's not the case, like I'm like, why are you crying? You know, I'm not gonna just blank them and then leave. Yeah. So is that you escaping there, or is that just you like because you're that uncomfortable, so you're just like, I'm going to avoid this, or is that not what's going on?
Okay, so that direct situation, I didn't know the girl too well. I knew her like for 2 months as a housemate, and so that was what's going through my head. Like, oh, what am I allowed to do? I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel close enough to you to like really be that personal with you.
That's very fascinating because I consider leaving as also a decision. You're making a decision either way. Decision, help. How much do I help, or how does one help? And I've only known him for 2 months. But that decision to avoid the situation to me is far more damaging, and also just far more. It makes a very strong statement. Mm-hmm. I imagine that friend didn't last much longer. Well, it was a housemate.
It was a housemate.
Yeah, that's a toughie. I mean, a housemate. I don't know. I don't like living with other people, but I feel like if someone were crying, I would do the minimum just because I have to live with this person. Yeah, that's a tough one though. I'm not gonna put all the pressure on you on that one. That was a difficult one. But I mean, I also, if I see a random person I've ever met before crying, I'm gonna stop and ask them if they're okay.
Yeah, ask. Okay.
And you might think that's weird for an INTJ. I don't know, but I will. If they're alone and they're crying, I want to know what's going on there because it's not right. And I've done it, and I've had people be just leave me alone. I'm like, great. I did my best. I'm not gonna push it. Like an FE person might push it further, but I'm done after that. Well, that's interesting. I'm not gonna push the topic too much further than that. That's very fascinating.
I've noticed that I sort of freeze in those situations. Okay, well, back to hero functions, however.
Yep.
Next is hero extroverted intuition, ENTPs, ENFPs. And NE is all about, extroverted intuition is all about exploration of possibilities and ideas, brainstorming. And NE users love to discover the connections between seemingly unrelated things, coming up with new ideas, exploring novelty. You know, screw the plans. Let's find something right now, which makes them adaptable and really open-minded. And when they're in that situation, they're very energetic. So ENTPs, ENFPs, that's their hero.
So they draw energy from that.
Mm-hmm.
The word novelty is interesting. Are they interested in novelty things, or is it just that the ideas they have are usually novel? I wish I had a good example.
I would, as an NE user myself, I would say that it's much more the process. It's less about like the actual abject is that the right word? Apparent novelty. It's not that the person will look at it and judge the novelty of this thing that they see. Mm-hmm. It's instead like just following the connections where they go and what you discover. That if you discover something that you didn't expect and it's new, that's novel. It's novel.
Okay, I see.
But it's not like something you judge in the moment.
Right.
Next, introverted sensing. The ISFJ, like the ISFJ we met last night. ISFJ, or 2 nights ago maybe. ISTJ, ISFJ, introverted sensing. Introverted sensing is about uh, memory, tradition, routine, history, uh, reflecting on the things that have happened in your life, how those went. You know, you have like a catalog of memories, and also wanting to project those memories out into the future. Like, oh, hey, last time we did Christmas there. I want to do that again. That kind of feeling. Um,
It's kind of a copy paste kind of situation.
yeah, and it's almost like this seeking of stability and tradition and memory, seeking of stability. So if it happens again this year, it feels even more stable.
That makes sense. So
And
it's the stability that's the underlying cause of this, then wanting to be stable, because tradition is a stability thing. Memories are, well, something you can rely on and then try to replicate again.
yep, and it's more like the feeling of it echoing. Uh, it just feels good. It feels relaxing.
Okay.
Um, and so these people are very structured and stable, and they want every day to be the same.
So I immediately have a question
Like
here.
that.
We talked about people wanting others then to see things the way they do. Does that mean they would also be a bit insistent on relying on or keeping traditions? For example, would they do that to another person, or is it just an internal thing or a self thing? Where it's like, yeah, I appreciate traditions, but you do whatever you want to do.
Um,
And are they sharing these memories with people, or like wanting people to share the memories? Is it something like that, or is it just a self thing? I'm wondering.
oh yeah, well, I mean, so the people that you hear insisting that you keep a tradition, it could be an ISTJ, ISFJ, but more likely ESFJ, ESTJ,
Mm.
because that they have introverted sensing as their second function,
Interesting.
and in their minds, in their minds, it's important. If we don't have this, then bad things can happen, and so
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, come for Christmas.
Are they likely to be superstitious? Like if
Uh,
you walk under a ladder, you're gonna have bad luck.
well, it's it's it depends on whether they heard that growing up.
Okay, so sure. Okay, let's. I forgot that part, but yeah, if it's something that they generally, okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense. So like yeah, it's like you have a Christmas tree. It's like well, we have to put the star on the top. If we don't have the star, we're gonna have bad luck. It's just like it has to be there. Like it doesn't matter. You can do everything Christmas exactly like you did last year, but if you're missing that one thing, they're gonna freak out about it. Is that more of an ESTJ thing or?
That's that's just SI,
Mm-hmm.
and that is SI, like them wanting to do it the way that we've always done
Okay, so that's
it. And
like them. That's the hero function. That's not them in anywhere near warrior mode yet, because like they would be able to let that go, that one thing go, right? Assuming is that would
warrior.
that be the warrior level of the SI then?
Oh yeah, the warrior level of SI would say, ah, I mean, the things that I insist on being important and true aren't actually necessarily objectively true. They are just how I see the world.
Mm.
And people can do that, and I would like the freedom to be able to live my way. Well, they can do that too.
I can see two SIs clashing as well because if they have completely separate traditions, like let's say you marry somebody that has SI, you both have SI, and you both like did Christmas a different way. I could see that being absolutely an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be. I just can't imagine them communicating it very well.
I don't think they would stay married for very long if that were the. Or they probably wouldn't even got through dating. I guess.
I wonder.
I'm just looking at relationships. Like I could see that being anywhere in any relationship, but like that's very interesting
Yeah. Um,
because we're touching base on ones that I don't have in my stack as well. So like I mean. I'll be honest with you. I liked Christmas, for example, growing up. I liked the tradition of it. I wasn't obsessed with it being a certain way, but I was certainly liked that it happened, and I would have been upset if it didn't. But like that's about as far as it goes. Like and I'm also nostalgic about certain things, certain people, certain moments in my life, but very few. And even those, like the memories themselves, aren't as vivid as they used to be. So like they're fading with each passing year. So that also begs the question that with an SI person, do you think that they continue to have a vivid memory of that and that it stays clear to them forever, more so than it would with someone like myself?
I think so, because for SI DOMs, they're constantly reflecting on it. They're constantly using it
And therefore,
in order to make decisions in their life.
so it's actively being remembered, so it's a little more likely to be fresh in the memory and therefore not cease to exist, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. So for example, that's you probably are talking to an SI user or SI dominant if they say that's not the way we used to do it, or that's not the way we do it,
That's not the way we do it.
because they remember it. That's just their knee jerk reaction.
Huh. And so they're also then the types of people to be opposed to change, obviously, coming up with new ideas, anything like that. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll probably get to that later, but
Yeah, yeah. Yep. The next on the list here is extroverted sensing, ESTPs, ESFPs, and SE is focused on extroverted sensing is focused on in the moment engagement and sensory experience. And so one way I like to think of it is like if, for example, if they walked into this room would feel like their playground, like the thing that they can do right now. They'll say like, Derek, blah blah blah. They are in this moment, and this is a place where all that they can do can happen. If that's clear.
yeah, I just don't know why they'd be so aggressive.
Well,
Derek, blah blah blah, like try to knock me out of my chair. But if I were to talk about something outside of the room, like over there, that kind of thing, blah blah, like they would not be interested then.
They would.
The further out of sight, the further out of mind, so to speak.
Exactly. Blank thoughts. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? That we're here.
It's not here.
Yeah.
I see.
So in the moment, and so just something that I think that helps here is certain people that are certain SE users, or what SE users are very good at is things like first responders, like paramedic, police officer. These situations where immediate response and like action in the moment, athletes.
So probably
is
very
very important.
dexterous and good hand-eye coordination, I would imagine.
They would value it. They
Value.
would perhaps. I mean, they might not be good at it, but they would value it, and they would pursue those things likely.
Yeah, and therefore, with practice, just like the memories, they would be better than the average person at it, assuming they have the ability.
Absolutely, the potential is there.
Right.
Yes, and they would likely get very good at it.
So, talking about that, for example, if I ask them, "What do you want to have for dinner?" They the type of person, I don't know. Like they don't know until like it's time to eat, or
they. Well, okay. My father.
Weird question, but
my father's ESTP.
Mm-hmm.
He's constantly thinking about what he's going to eat next.
Okay.
like just the day is him thinking about what he's going to eat next, and then everything in between.
Is that sort of like why I get stuck though? Like, because I'll do the same thing. Like, I'll think about it like all day what I'm going to eat, and then the whole day will pass sometimes because I can't decide. Is that similar?
Perhaps.
Because I have SC, but it's my inferior function.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if that's why I have trouble doing it though.
I wonder.
I'm very indecisive in that sense.
I wonder. I can think about it more. I can look into it.
That's why I tend to just systematize it. Like if it's something that doesn't matter, systemize. I think is the word I was looking for. Then I just eat the same thing every day, and I'll just cook it like without even knowing I'm doing it, just to get it out of the way, because I don't want to get stuck in that thought loop. I don't know. Let's look at that later.
Yeah. Well, my dad. He's always wondering, but he actually also can't really decide, because another part of SE is wanting the people around you to have a good experience and being really, really attentive to that and conscious. And so he wants to hear from us, me and my mom, what we want to eat. However, us as SE 7th functions, we have no idea what we want to eat.
So the answer, I don't know, I don't care, is probably going to be a bit annoying to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he's like, why aren't you as like excited about this as I am? Why don't you care about what you're going to eat? It's important.
Mm-hmm. However, maybe my dad has discovered over time, after we eat it, then we'll have something good to say. If it's good, then it's like, oh, that was great. That was really tasty. And my mom responds that way too, and then his SE is pleased with that.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right.
I wonder if there's a lot of SE chefs, like culinary
Likely.
arts.
Likely. My view on Mr. British man
Gordon Ramsay?
Gordon Ramsay is ENTJ, so he has SE as a third function.
Third, okay.
First function is TE, extroverted thinking, which we can go to next. Or actually, let's do introvert intuition first.
Okay.
The next hero function is introvert intuition. This is all out of order, but that's fine.
I was gonna ask right now, like, what was who chose the order for this?
I was
We did any ages ago.
Yeah, I jumped over that so that we can talk about it
Okay.
later, but we'll talk about it now. Okay, so NI is vision. It is focused on it's a very personal view on what you see out into the future, and insights, like connecting things on the inside and seeing how they all connect and where they lead. And so a very common language for NI users is patterns, and intuition in general is unconscious. So it's very much like these patterns just jump out and talk to you, and you see images, and you see connections, and that is Derek. And NI user INTJ and INFJ's number one function, their hero function. And I'd love to actually hear more if that sounds like it fits.
I can speak to the unconscious noticing of patterns because on the other way around, if I'm actively looking for a pattern, I mean that's a little bit more. That's not immediate. What I mean is, if it didn't already immediately happen, then it's not going to happen. Or it's just going to take just as long as it would for you to find a pattern. Is what I mean. So like, if it's not something, so it's usually something I've experienced previously. So basically, what we're doing, I suppose, is over time we're unconsciously noticing things, and those things are stacking up in our mind, and as they match together, they're going into a stack, or what is it in programming, a hash set, I guess.
Okay.
So the more keys you end up, the more that stacks up, then the more likely that pattern is actually there, and therefore we will. That's why we'll make statements about stuff without actually knowing. That is what intuition is, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So if we recognize a pattern, then we immediately say, okay, that's that, and then we can that makes it easier for this then to move on to the next thing. It also makes it easier to make a connection so that we can work on just get something done. But yeah, I definitely agree with that 100%. Patterns is probably the most important thing. What was the other thing you mentioned?
Patterns, vision.
Vision, yeah, also the same thing. It speaks to the same thing. Patterns, connections. So we will make connections between A and B and et cetera, using the same process of it's just something that we know that generally this works, and therefore that probably works here, and we'll apply that to that first, and then we'll try it out.
That's very interesting. What I hear here is, it's a very different way of observing. So I see it's still observing. However, for example, if someone used logic to come to a conclusion, they could say that, right? But it feels like for introvert intuition, it's simply that I've seen this a lot, and that's what you go by.
Yeah, but using the word see sounds active. It's unconscious. So I want to make sure we keep that in mind. It's not like I saw that, I see that. It's because that's too active. It is very, very inactive. And in fact, that's what makes it so wonderful. It's like the less you pay attention to things, the more you seem to know, it seems like. Like I seem to know more stuff when I'm not paying attention. And then I come into a room and then like have to actually apply something. Yeah, the other thing I want to talk about patterns, and again, the words, because the words unlocked the thought I had. Vision. Yeah, it's the same. So like, in order to we take all these patterns, we take all these connections, and then we apply those to and then again it's kind of subconscious, but at the same time we are kind of thinking about stuff and just like whatever, and like it just I don't know, the dots connect in the air, like in your brain, like because it's not physically in front of you, it's just like in your mind the dots will be connecting, you don't really know what's happening. And then suddenly you're just like, and then you'll know, like, oh, this is the thing I need to do now. or I need to work on this, or this is a great idea. I'm so excited about this. Let's see how we can make this into a real thing. The downside is a lot of the times it's not in this world plausible. It's like breaking the laws of physics a lot of the time, or just generally not possible, not plausible. So that is disheartening, but it certainly is a part of it. It's just something we have to kind of not humble, but just realize that it isn't possible, not over fantasize. So there's a lot of fantasizing going on there, somewhat. If you allow yourself to indulge too far or for too long, but as long as you keep a healthy balance in your life, you're able to just decide. I was going to use the word discriminate between what's realistic and what's not. But yeah, the vision. So like this is why people like myself, at least, are able to just kind of come up with these really crazy sounding ideas. And again, like they're not plausible a lot of the time. So you don't know that, you know. Well, you have somebody who's like in the moment who's just like, well, we have these things here, so I'm going to build something with it. I don't think that way. It's like I don't care about what we have here because my idea is like this is the thing I want to make. Now let's plan it out. So do we need any of these parts? No, we need other parts that don't exist yet. Well, how are we going to make them? Let's make them. And yeah, that's exciting.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting because um, I see I see as an INTP that I'm very disconnected from physical reality, which allows me to think about many things that I think are possible, even though there's no evidence that it's possible. And I hear in that an even more unmoored approach of just like drawing this map that is purely imagined.
But we are pulling from pre-existing things. So we're a
Mhm.
lot of times that's why we are the people you would go to fix something, so to speak. Not physically fix it, but like come up with a better idea. So if you show me this thing that's like, well, this kind of works, but doesn't really, and there's flaws. We don't know what the flaws are. We'd like to optimize this. I would be able to just use that and then maybe come up with a better idea, or completely scrap that just with this in mind from the past. So we are looking towards the future, building off of perhaps something that pre-exists
Hmm.
systematically or physically or whatever. One other thing I just want to speak to is like you said, not being aware of your surroundings. Though that is also going on with myself. However, unconsciously, I'm noticing patterns. Like I like to use the example when we're walking outside because it's very busy where we live. There's a lot of people, cars, lots of stuff going on. And people are all over the place, moving at different speeds, etc., etc. And I, at least for myself, I use this unconsciousness to kind of recognize where I can like how I can navigate the sidewalk, for example. And so it's a lot of timing. It's like, okay, my brain goes, someone walking at this pace is likely to make this many steps in this amount of time. This is being processed for me automatically. And so that I'm able to change my pace or change directions completely. I might go away, like, well, why is he going over there? Because I know that by the time I get to where I'm trying to go, that person is about to be there. And so that I feel is also NI. I'm not 100% sure,
Mm.
but it's definitely something. I mean, it's maths too. I could sit there and use I guess that would be SE and try to calculate everything, but I don't feel like that's what I'm doing. I feel like I'm using patterns from previous times. When this person's walking at this speed, they typically will get here by this time, and therefore there's a pattern of connection being created, and then I'm utilizing that to execute on movements
I see,
without
I see, I
really
see.
paying any attention at all. In fact, I'm thinking about other things. That's the beauty of it. I'm completely oblivious to what's going on. I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat maybe later, and next thing you know, I'm at the end of the street.
Mm.
So I feel like that's NI
Mm. No,
or just ADHD. I don't know.
I can hear it. I can hear it, and that's I can hear why SE can be
It's distracting,
annoying,
actually.
distracting because it's pulling you out of that.
Yeah, and then I'm like, now I have to now I'm in the physical realm trying to calculate, and then I become like awkward, like burp, and that's when I'll run into somebody probably.
Mm.
Yeah, or just generally like shut down.
I see, I see, I see.
In fact, that's actually what happens when if you see me just stop moving, it's because I'm like, oh, I lost it. I lost the vision. Now I can't move. Where am I?
Very
Yeah, that's
interesting.
exactly it. So let's just come back over to NE for a second here, and because I want to talk further about why that isn't because you're also not there or
Mm-hmm.
not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you navigate through these types of situations? What do you utilize to get through there? Are you bumping into people, or I mean, what do you feel like a very busy sidewalk? Let's say.
In a busy sidewalk, I'm constantly watching what everyone's doing, and it's almost like a you can almost think there are little arrows going off of everyone,
Mm.
and I'm observing each person, and I'm almost like trying to read their mind and where they want to go and what they're trying to do. The car is slowing down a little bit. Oh, if the car's slowing down a little bit, they're probably going to stop completely because that must mean that they noticed me, kind of idea. Like that's what I'm doing with everyone I'm observing around me all the time. It's like I'm watching everyone, and I'm thinking I have this like engine going in my mind saying this is what that person wants and is doing right now, and like this is what they would buy, almost kind of stuff.
And this doesn't distract you from your, because you haven't talked much about how you're getting from A to B. You're just talking about your observations. But like, are you still moving while this is happening? And like, how is that going?
So I'm really not really thinking about where I'm going. That's I think that this is why I'm very uh, the Bruce Lee quote of like be like water. That's why I become like water. I become like water so I can observe all that and not really care. Like maybe it's more like I'm also part of that network, and so if I observe everyone, then I can just go where other people aren't going.
That's why it takes you so long to get from A to B now, I realize. Because you just, all that you just explained is all happening over a very long period of time. And even though you have a place you're supposed to be, you just never actually make it there because you're water. I get it now. Because for me, like the part I didn't mention, I guess it's kind of TE, is like I'm also want to get from A to B as efficient and typically as fast as possible. And I actually do get quite annoyed when I'm with someone who's water floating around me because I have to keep stopping. That pulls me out of like it literally is like the antithesis. Oh, that word again. Antithesis is a, I can't pronounce that, of what I'm trying to like accomplish here. Yeah, so that's quite interesting. I was just curious how what kind of processes you're going through.
Yeah, my NEFE way of going, yeah. When I'm outside, I'm NEFEing. I'm saying like I'm thinking like, oh, if I act this way, I can move the system in such that it is optimally moving. Like if I let the car pet through, then I can walk behind it, and neither of us will have to slow down at all. Kind of that kind of stuff.
Says the guy who's already moving very slowly in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, slowly.
Okay, I see what you mean though. It's more taking into consideration all the things around, whereas I don't care. I just want to get through it.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
In fact, if a car has to stop, so be it. I mean, they're not supposed to run me over anyway.
Mm.
Interesting. All right, we can move on from that digression.
Okay. So extroverted thinking is the next one. ENTJ, ESTJ, hero function, and the extrovert thinking hero function is about external organization and efficiency, deadlines, getting things done. What did I get done? What did I agree to? Am I working with the people efficiently? Is everything organized? Can I know, like, if I ask someone what they're doing, can they tell me right away? Like that kind of world. That kind of world. Setting measurable KPIs, outcomes, and expecting everyone to be working together as a unit. These kinds of things.
I like that. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds like someone that wouldn't be very patient either.
No.
Like you said, I'm the same. Like when I ask someone a question, I tend to not want to wait. I will give them enough time to process the question. I take into consideration what was the question. If I ask them, what's their favorite color? I mean, that's assuming they have one. They should be able to answer that right away. Whereas if I ask them like to solve something or to do something or to answer a more difficult question, sure, I don't expect an immediate answer there. So I mean, at least I take that into consideration. However, if I do ask someone what their favorite color is, and there's like, did I? I have the green socks on today. Oh, blue. I will lose my mind. But there are people like that, or they just won't answer you. I've had people just say, "Don't stare at me." Sometimes I'm just thinking, "Are you broken?" Like I don't know if they did, because I don't know if they did not understand the question, don't know the answer, are scared to get it wrong. There's a whole bunch of things, and so that just is very turbulent. But to speak back to TE, I mean, like you said, the whole idea is getting things done, knowing who's doing what, just basically an overall management and control over everything that's happening at that point in time in that process.
It's I almost hear like out here, I want these to be moving like a machine,
Yeah, and
and I'm part of the machine.
what's very important is that it's not just efficient but also correct or working properly. The idea of having to maintain it or to fix it is that is anti-TE actually.
Mm.
We want something to work perfectly, ideally.
Mm.
So the system with myself in it, sure. Everybody knows like you said, knows their place, blah blah blah, and they're doing it. There's no humming and hawing. There's not a lot of questions going on. I mean, you can ask questions, but ideally they wouldn't. Everything was planned out so perfectly that there's no room for questions. There's no way you can have a question because something that is perfect. No, there's no question there, right? It's just you know what you're doing, so let's get it done. And that's what's at least I'm assuming is the idea here with the hero function of TE. Me having it as a secondary function, it certainly is very prevalent in the way I approach different circumstances.
Yep. Well, I can speak to something actually that I was just reminded about the hero function as opposed to secondary. Second is parent function.
Oh, rather okay, parent function.
So actually, the difference here is that the hero function is very optimistic, and it thinks like if you say, hey, can you do 10 hero function type things, and the hero function says,
I can do 100.
yeah, like I of course give it all to me. It's very optimistic. Whereas the second function, the parent function, number one, it is more measured. It's more negative. Like the person treats this as like this is very important. Like let's not mess this up. This is serious, and less negative, and also you feel responsible for it. So for TE, it's like, oh, I guess no one's doing TE. I need to do TE, or else nothing's gonna happen. Kind of feeling.
You mean that as a parent function though? For
Yes, as a parent
INTJ,
function.
for example. So
Yeah.
hero function, no, but parent function, yes.
Hero function is like, oh, look, don't worry about it. I got that.
Yeah. Whereas with me, it's like, let me think about that.
Or
Right.
TE.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm assuming we're talking about parent function.
Oh, okay, okay,
Right.
yeah.
And I was speaking to what you said. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot more weight. I mean, I would immediately try to figure out, okay, is this going to work?
Mhm.
So I would have to NI it first. I have to plan it first. And then I will say to you, yeah, it's going to work.
Yeah, and your TE is more pessimistic, negative. You want to make sure you it's right.
Yeah, I guess that sounds less certain the way you're putting it, like confidence wise. Like, so the hero function is like, yeah, I can do it. So the confidence is there regardless. With me, no, it would never be. I would always be second guessing and just making sure, double checking. There's a lot of that, which I don't want to use the word negative. It's just less certain, and therefore, well, because earlier I did say the system should be perfect. I meant like ideally. Ideally, I'm doing it right. If I'm doing it right, that's great. But I'm certainly going to be more prone to having to double check stuff.
So what I was mostly pointing at is that the hero function is very optimistic, and almost it's able to take a lot of punishment. You can throw 20, like for an ENTJ, ESTJ, you throw them 20 things, they're gonna want to do them all, and they're gonna dive right in, and like it'll energize them to do them all, and they'll come back for more.
Yeah, I would say it's probably more tiring for me to do them. Like I will take on as many as I can, certainly not 20, and also I will feel the pain of having done them more so than they would, I think.
Yeah.
If that's the right terminology.
Yeah. The last one here is introverted thinking, INTP and ISTP. And introverted thinking is all about internally consistent logic, frameworks, distilling things down to first principles. Instead of speaking to, for example, the knowledge we have about something, if you can break it down to like these are the 4 or 5 important ideas about it, and then you can build everything off of those. That's very much what TI wants to know and wants to have. And it's I can speak to some other things about it. It's TE is very reality and practicality focused. TI is detached from reality and seeks instead to come up with timeless, universal principles that explain these things that they can use and build from. So That's Hero TI.
Yeah, since it's internalized, it doesn't function as T as well because, like we said earlier, there's everybody knows their role. So there's people involved, there's things involved, real world things going on there. There's a lot of moving parts. Whereas with I mean, aside from whatever you have going on in your head, it's all for you and all about your thoughts, right? And about organizing those and doing that in the most practical way possible, or not. Maybe I'm not. That's not right, but
Well, I would say the most waste-free way possible, the most concise way that I can organize it. I want to build out the framework, and what I just said was that I seek to make it completely detached from reality, so that I can organize it in a way where it always works and always matters, as opposed to saying something like, "How long is it going to take?" That's not part of it. What's part of everything that's part of it is how it works, and the most concise way to explain this topic. I mean, give me a topic. Can you think of a topic that I can talk about TI with? Okay, for coding.
I was hoping we could do something not coding because I was immediately thought coding.
Yeah.
All right, coding.
Yeah. So the part that TI
how about not
would
coding? How about building a car?
building a car.
You got all those. You got an engine. You got a body. You got all that stuff has to get done.
Okay, so that's the TE way to think about it, and SE way to think about it. The TI way to think about it is, well, what does a car need to do? A car needs to move forward, it needs to go backwards. And then, okay, so with that principle, how are we going to move forward? Well, we're going to need some kind of fuel source, and then you kind of build up from the principles like that. Like it goes forward and backwards. How do you make it go forward and backwards? If you want to make it go forward this fast, then you need an engine that goes this fast, and you can kind of. I hope you can hear the principles of it leading, and necessitating the real world parts.
Yeah, it's just like now I wanted to get more specific, talking about an engine. Like how would you figure out how piston timing needs to work, or all the physics of it? Like it sounds like you would need to know every single. I'm talking every screw, every part, every bolt in the car. I know what each one's gonna do and how it's gonna function.
Well, yes. However, in engineering, what people do is they say, okay, we can't figure all that out, so we'll just do 20 prototypes, and then the best one that we get is the one we'll use. That's kind of the approach in engineering, because like all of those parts, like yeah, you can somewhat understand how they all work, and then if you put it together, then now it's a totally different thing, and so that's why oftentimes in engineering they simply
Right, but just
produce a lot of
shaving
prototypes.
out 1 mil, so boring out. Maybe I'm getting too technical. That was like an engine,
No, we're talking
like
about whatever.
boring out 1 millimeter from where a piston goes, and then obviously expanding the piston can create a completely different timing, which can unlock all kinds of different things. It also can unlock a lot of problems.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine how just 20 iterations would be enough.
No, many more iterations.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking that infinite cost is not plausible. You
Well, yeah.
have to. So that's why I'm thinking. Well, how can you do this? Why wouldn't you do it on paper first?
Well, you can do it on paper.
Okay, so I would certainly draw it first and figure out the maths first before I started building anything.
Well,
Because
it all
otherwise you'd be
iterates.
wasting materials.
It all iterates.
Okay,
It all
I see.
iterates.
So it is about iterations though, and trying trial and error, so to speak, perhaps, until an optimal solution is found, or what is it? Are we looking at satisfactory wise,
Uh,
or that's not of a concern, maybe?
I would say a lot of times it's based on specs that you define beforehand. Like it needs to be able to go 0 to 60 at this time, blah blah blah, all that. So you build towards that. Like in order to do that, we need to have an engine this size and able to push this much exhaust. You know. Uh,
So that would rely on TE then to plan that out for you first.
well, for the benchmarks that you want to hit, sure, that's a very TE idea.
Right. Okay. So that's where they can go hand in hand. Interestingly.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't see SI and SE like working together very well. A T and TI can. I'm just making this is a connection I'm just making randomly right now. FE, FI, same thing. It's like FE is external. FI is actually quite the opposite though. It is just more about like how I feel or how my morals and like that stuff. Whereas the FE is concerned with other people, so I wouldn't say those go hand in hand. I feel like TETI does.
I also think FIFE actually
Okay.
goes along quite well. The image I think about is like the very nice and caring housewife, and the very individualistic and adamant about like what's right husband, and that's FIFE. Like FIFE is like hold on, you need to do your part of the deal right, or else I'm gonna have a problem with this. That's FI.
Okay.
And then FE
Yeah.
is like, no, you don't have to do that,
Huh.
So like they do complement each other.
I guess
because
the
they-
compliment is there. It's just more resistant to me because of the FE, probably. I guess I understand TI more than I do FE,
Mm, mm,
at least from the explanations.
yeah.
Huh. So the hero functions, and we didn't talk so much about all of how all of the functions can be, or how they would function as a. I almost said samurai function. What is the word? Warrior function.
Warrior function.
Samurai. I mean, come on, why not? Yeah, there's a lot of good information there. I think. Not really going to reflect on it. I'm just saying, like, yeah, those are the 8.
Cool.
Aren't
Yeah,
they great?
We can lay that out and keep on fleshing it out as we move on.
Yeah,
Do
so
you think-
I think
you
we'll
think
just
parent-
move what's makes the most sense, which we'll move on to the parent functions in the next podcast, perhaps, or rather that'll be next when we come back to this topic, if we do.
Okay,
Is all I'm saying. We will go in order.
that sounds good. Okay, with that, anything else?
Nope.
All right. See ya next episode.
Bye.